Static hum. Grand Council Chamber. Cold. Alien voices arguing, translated into cold, sterile tones. Narrator VO. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to control Earth. They deployed Minecraft, memes, and machines. But today, a human arrived. Alone. Cut to a shadowy figure walking into a vast alien chamber. Silence. Then footsteps echo. Thorn calmly amused. Did you think we didn't notice the vote? Every alien stops breathing. The cube in his hand pulses once. Thorn. Earth noticed. And it decided something too. Screen glitches. Symbol, humanity detected. The chamber of the Galactic Council loomed like a cathedral carved from silence. Polished obsidian reflected the dim violet glow of HFY, the dead star that spun like a malignant god outside the spire's shields. Delegates from 37 civilizations lined the arc of the council floor, seated in floating thrones of alloy and light. No noise, just the pulse of ancient protocols and the measured breath of power. High Arbiter Selvar Nexual stood tall at the apex, his prelithian robes sharp as blades, voice tuned to the frequency of command. The motion is clear. Earth remains non-compliant. Psychological engineering has failed. Legal assimilation resisted. Genetic pacification thwarted. Their cultural entropy spreads unchecked. He let the silence settle. Not hesitation, expectation. As if the council needed his approval to feel alarmed. I move for Directive 9. Total control. Murmurs sparked. Varnathi tendrils rippled. The Telnari blinked their translucent lids twice, concern, or calculation. Even the rigid Kathari whispered between subchannels. The Omniveil protocol had been subtle, media infiltrations, dream state suppressants, thought loop viruses. All failed. Earth adapted, absorbed, then mocked them. Human comedians ran satire segments on the attempted mind control, turning advanced psychotronic warfare into primetime ratings. Worse, human culture didn't just resist, it spread. Galactic youth wore Terran music and neurofeeds, quoted Earth's mythic antiheroes, and drank something called whiskey, despite lacking livers. Nexual's jaw tightened. We have indulged them too long. Their creativity is not brilliance, it is noise weaponized. Chaos packaged as charm. We shall reformat them from orbit if we must. A flicker of light. The decision crystal levitated before him. He pressed 2 fingers against it. Vote registered, Prelithian High Arbiter, in favor. Across the chamber, crystals glowed one by one. In favor. In favor. In favor. Not a single red glimmer. No abstentions. Not even from the empathic Veliari. The motion passed without protest. Nexual exhaled. The final envoy arrives within the hour. Their designated representative will be informed of our terms. A Varnathi assistant clicked its mandibles. It is already en route, High Arbiter. Nexual turned sharply. Already? The Varnathi tapped its data pad, chittering nervously. Yes. No fleet. No diplomatic array. No orbiting escorts. A single ship, unregistered. And one life form on board. A hush dropped over the chamber like a falling blade. One. Not a council. Not a defense. A single human. Nexual narrowed his eyes. They insult us. The insectoid delegate next to him hissed softly. Or they know something we don't? The docking bay lights shifted to crimson, signaling a breach of tradition. Council guards flanked the entrance in polished exosuits, magnetic rifles humming with suppressed power. The ship was small, almost crude by galactic standards. Charred panels. Civilian architecture. No logos, no allegiance. It landed without request, doors opening with a lazy hiss, no fanfare, no diplomatic flair. Then he stepped out. Tall. Pale coat. No weapons visible. He didn't walk like an ambassador. He walked like a man who'd already walked over gods. Identification, barked the guard captain. The human held up a single translucent chip. No emblem, just a pulse, humanity recognized. The captain hesitated, then stepped aside. Protocol allowed it. Barely. Thorn Draven entered the council without bowing. He strode across polished onyx tiles like they were sand. The chamber watched in silence. His boots echoed, mocking the hush. He reached the central platform, stopped, and placed a small black cube on the council's speaking pedestal. Then he looked up. I heard you voted. Nexual stood, impassive. You were sent to receive our terms. Draven smiled faintly, as if someone had told a joke but the punchline hadn't landed. No. I came to deliver ours. The cube pulsed once, dim blue glow. The lights in the chamber flickered, not from malfunction, but anticipation. Nexual's voice sharpened. Do you presume to threaten this assembly? No. Draven's tone was casual. I'm past threats. He took a slow step forward. For a century you've tried to shape us. Correct us. Smother us under your order. Another step. Memetics. Subliminal neurobursts. Economic coils. You used every tactic short of fire. Another. And now you've voted to use fire. Nexual lifted his chin. Earth leaves us no alternative. Draven's eyes locked with his. Earth noticed the vote. And it decided something too. He gestured toward the cube. It pulsed again. Nexual paused. What is that? Perspective. Silence. The weight of that word rippled through the chamber like a fracture line. You see, we used to think you were gods. You float in orbit. You speak in thought forms. You have councils of light. But gods don't hide behind paperwork. Gods don't need votes. He leaned closer. And gods don't lose to apes with bad tempers and better music. The council stirred. Nervous glances. The Telnari adjusted their environmental filters. Even the AI-linked Kathari began analyzing the cube. You believe this room holds power, Draven continued. But Earth isn't here to kneel. We've read your treaties. Listened to your false empathy. Studied your manipulation manuals. He stepped back and smiled. This isn't a negotiation. This is a courtesy. Nexual's hands curled into fists behind his back. We will not be threatened by one Terran envoy with a trick box and a superiority complex. Draven didn't respond. The cube did. It let out a soft chime, clear, final. Good, Draven said. Now we're done with introductions. The light dimmed in the chamber, not because of the cube, but because something larger, something systemic, had just begun. Something irreversible. For 37 species, silence meant different things. For the crystalline Heronix, it was reverence. For the Kathari, it meant tactical calculation. But in the chamber of the Galactic Council, silence had only one meaning now: uncertainty. Thorn Draven stood at the epicenter of that unease, hands in his coat pockets, eyes scanning the curved rows of alien delegates like a man sizing up a house made of kindling. He didn't move like a diplomat. He moved like gravity had decided to behave differently around him. You'll have to forgive me, Thorn said, turning slowly. I wasn't briefed on the etiquette for rooms full of people who just voted to subjugate my planet. No one spoke. Nexual's expression was unreadable. Prelithians didn't blink, didn't sweat, didn't tremble. But he shifted one foot back, and Thorn noticed. You mock us, Nexual said finally, voice even. In this chamber, words hold the weight of planets. Good, Thorn replied. I came heavy. He tapped the black cube gently. It vibrated beneath his fingers. The ripple wasn't visible, but the chamber's air felt different. Thinner. Unsettled. A Velyari delegate, glassy-skinned and laced with bioluminescent nerve spirals, leaned forward. Explain its function. In time, Thorn said. First, let's talk about yours. He gestured broadly at the thrones. You believe control is survival. That without submission, the galaxy will unravel. I get it. It's neat. It's sterile. It works, until it doesn't. A Kathari hissed over comms, its voice like broken wind chimes. You speak as if chaos is preferable. No, Thorn said, eyes locked with Nexual now. But freedom is. He let that sit for a beat. No posturing. No metaphor. Just a line drawn in the void. Nexual moved down from his dais, his steps precise, robes trailing like smoke. You claim freedom, he said, circling Thorn. But you've violated every attempt at peaceful integration. Earth has sabotaged treaties, intercepted transmissions. You've corrupted our young with primitive myth and indulgent media. Thorn smiled thinly. You offered us assimilation. We declined. That's not corruption. That's a boundary. The insective Varnathi delegate clicked its mandibles, skeptical. You countered our mimetic programs with, what did you call it, memes? Correct. And ours were funnier. A few delegates didn't understand. A few did, and hated that they did. Nexual's voice grew sharp. You're reckless. You confuse noise for innovation. Thorn turned toward him, eyes darker now. You confuse silence for peace. The cube pulsed once. Soft blue. A heartbeat. The lights above flickered, not visibly, but enough for every AI interface in the chamber to recalibrate. The Telnari delegate whispered something into her translation node. Her holographic screen lit up. A silent alert. She went pale. High Arbiter, she said quietly. We're detecting signal interference. Internal. Origin here. Nexual snapped. Source? The cube, she said. It's accessing council archives. Now the room reacted. That's impossible. It's not connected to the net. Nothing can breach a council firewall. Thorn remained exactly where he was. You built your systems for honesty, predictability, consensus. We didn't. The cube projected a single image into the air, a classified council document. Red stamped. Restricted access. Title: Omniveil Stage 3, Behavioral Override via Emotional Suppression. Every delegate in the room saw their species listed. This is internal protocol. Nexual barked. It is protected. Not anymore, Thorn said. We've had this for months. Maybe longer. Another file appeared. Then another. Psychological sabotage programs. Strategic famine designs. Subliminal compliance triggers. Everything the council denied it used. You turned war into suggestion, Thorn said. We turned suggestion into performance art. The Heronix delegate twitched, crystalline body crackling with stress. If you've had this, why now? Why not act earlier? We weren't ready, Thorn said. We needed to understand the why, not just the how. You didn't attack us out of fear. You tried to tame us out of arrogance. Nexual's voice dropped to a low growl. And what do you intend now? Retaliation? Perspective, Thorn said again, tapping the cube once more. I'm not here to declare war. I'm here to make sure you understand why we didn't declare it sooner. A ripple passed through the council. Delegates began speaking over one another. Panic diluted their dignity. He's bluffing. Earth doesn't have the infrastructure. How did they crack protocol encryption? We've underestimated them. Thorn stood still amid the swirling fear. You watched our art and missed the message. You studied our history and ignored the pattern. You tried to break us down, never realizing humans don't break clean. The Telnari delegate stood suddenly. Her hands trembled. High Arbiter, I request a hold on Directive 9. This is not what we were told. Sit, Nexual ordered. She did not. Thorn turned toward her, offering a small nod of thanks, but said nothing. One delegate folds, and the rest crumble. Nexual snapped. That's not fear, Thorn said quietly. That's clarity. Another pulse. This time the cube's glow lingered. What's it doing now? Nexual asked, his voice tight. Nothing, Thorn said. Just remembering. Like we do. He stepped back from the pedestal, hands still in his coat pockets. You still believe you hold the galaxy together. But it was never you. It was belief. Trust. And now, the Council's illusion is unraveling, because the one species you couldn't control stopped pretending you mattered. Silence again. Not uncertainty this time. Dread. The kind that only grows when the predator starts speaking softly. Thorn didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The chamber listened not because he demanded it, but because the truth had crept in through cracks no one admitted existed. We weren't supposed to get this far, were we? He paced slowly, not as a performer, but like a man walking through the ruins of a lie. You believe the same thing every empire does, that resistance is ignorance. That non-compliance is weakness. That you are the axis of civilization. He paused beside the Varnathi delegate, whose exoskeleton pulsed pale green in visible distress. But that's not what happened. We didn't misunderstand you. We understood you too well. The cube beside him now emitted a steady, low pulse, calm, almost meditative. But every time it pulsed, another projection flickered into the air. A list of operations. Codename, Project Lens Fold. Species targeted, human. Objective, emotional sterilization through neurochemical dampening agents. This was deployed in Terran orbit 5 years ago, Thorn said, tapping the file. You wanted to soften us. Reduce volatility. You failed. The Telnari delegate, still standing, folded her arms. You've proven resistant. We assumed you'd evolve toward order. That was your second mistake, Thorn said. You thought emotional control was evolution. But humans didn't conquer Earth by being calm. We survive because we get angry. We fall in love too hard. We grieve louder. We act even when we're terrified. He let that sit. Then pointed to the next file. Phase 6, Collapse Economics, Induced Scarcity Trials. You tampered with supply chains. You hoped desperation would drive us to your treaties. A new projection appeared, footage of Earth adapting in real time, localized economies rising, black markets evolving into mutual aid systems, human AI countering resource denial with planetary scale fabrication. All you did was speed up our innovation curve. The Heronix delegate stood, crystalline spines vibrating with unease. This level of surveillance, it's impossible. Our encryption was quantum anchored. Thorn raised a brow. You built locks assuming we'd use keys. We used frequency mimicry, emotion map linguistics, post-symbolic decryption. We didn't break in, we sang your passwords back to you. The room fell cold. Nexual moved forward again, slower this time. His robes no longer swayed like banners. They dragged. If your species is so capable, he said carefully, why send you? Why not fleets? Thorn stared at him, the silence between them thicker than before. Because this isn't war yet. This is the part where you choose. The cube's projection shifted, now showing galaxy-wide reaction metrics, news feeds, intercepted transmissions, population sentiment graphs. A sudden spike in one quadrant caught attention, panic on a Varnathi world. Riots. Questions. You're already losing, Thorn said. Not through weapons. Through doubt. The Varnathi delegate muttered in a low register. They're using belief as a weapon. Thorn turned to him. We always have. That's what you never understood. You use faith to enforce rules. We use it to break chains. Another delegate, one of the older Kathari, finally spoke. What is the cube? A mirror, Thorn said. It doesn't project power. It reflects it. Everything it's showing you was already happening. You just didn't want to see it. The Kathari slumped back, systems dimming to idle. Nexual clenched his jaw, voice flat now. You're bluffing. These are dramatics. Misdirection. Earth lacks the infrastructure to mount a galactic-scale cognitive assault. You're still assuming we had to build one. The air cracked like dry ice splitting. Another file popped up, this time from a council internal audit labeled Cultural Viral Spread, Level Red Containment Breach. Images flashed, children on alien worlds dressing like Terran explorers, Non-human teenagers live streaming human protest songs, alien social networks flooded with Terran memes about council boomers. Thorn folded his arms. You built an empire on consensus. But your children don't believe in you anymore. The chamber's tension shifted from hostility to something heavier, fragility. Delegates no longer argued. They listened because disbelief had run out of oxygen. We warned you, Thorn continued. Not with threats. With silence. We stopped attending your summits. We pulled our ambassadors. You thought we were sulking. He leaned forward. We were planning. Nexual's voice rose, desperate now. You cannot destabilize thousands of years of order with feelings. That's how it always collapses, Thorn said. Not with bombs. With disillusionment. He stepped back to the cube, tapped it once. The room darkened. A final image blinked into place. A map. Council influence, marked in green. Human-aligned networks, now surging in red across former neutral zones. You see collapse. We see correction. The Telnari spoke again, softly. And what if we refuse to yield? Thorn didn't blink. Then Earth won't have to fire a single shot. You'll eat yourselves alive trying to keep a grip on something that's already slipped through. A long silence followed. Even Nexual said nothing. Then Thorn added, almost as an afterthought. The only reason I'm here at all is because some of us thought you might still listen. He turned, heading back toward the lift. But just before stepping off the platform, he stopped, looked over his shoulder. That courtesy is almost expired. A chime echoed through the council chamber, low, urgent, the kind used only for internal breach alerts. Thorn Draven didn't flinch. The delegates did. Glowing control panels flickered at each station. Status streams froze mid-refresh. Several chairs dimmed to standby, disconnected from central command. A Kathari assistant reached for a failsafe console. Its screen blinked red, access denied. Nexual's voice cut through the growing static. What have you done? Thorn didn't move. He faced the high chamber doors like someone waiting for a storm to arrive. I told you, this wasn't a threat. The cube pulsed once. On the main holosphere, the Council's own interstellar network began displaying anomalies. Trade relays flickered offline. Interspecies convoys blinked out in sequences too deliberate to be random. A Varnathi delegate hissed. This is coordinated. It's not just here, it's galaxy-wide. The Telnari's fingers shook as she tried to override the lockdown. It's their AIs. They've seeded predictive interference across our grid. I'm watching entire economic sectors collapse in simulation, weeks ahead of schedule. You're wrong, Thorn said calmly. It's not simulation anymore. The Telnari froze. What? The grid didn't predict it. It reported it. A new file appeared above the cube. Operation Mirafall. Terran codename. Council translation provided. Systemic reflection collapse. Thorn turned to face them again, his expression unreadable. Your networks were built for trust. Ours were built for stress. The moment you confirmed Directive 9, every Earth-aligned node activated. Independent. Decentralized. No kill switch. Nexual stepped toward the cube. You violated every treaty. You voided every treaty when you tried to rewrite our minds. Another light flared red, this time over the seat of the Heronix delegate. The crystalline entity buzzed a warning frequency. We're receiving independent surrender signals from multiple colonies. Non-human ones. They're defecting to Earth jurisdiction. The silence was louder than alarm klaxons. Thorn paced again. Controlled. No rush. They saw what was coming before you did. They saw what happens when you try to domesticate something that learned to make fire before it built cities. We can still isolate the breach. Nexual snapped. Containment is possible. Containment? Thorn stopped walking. Is that what this was for you? A slow suffocation wrapped in diplomatic language? He took a step forward. No bravado. Just wait. You threatened us with extinction. You coded it in paperwork and protocol, but it was annihilation all the same. He nodded at the Telnari. She sees it. They all do now. Your empire doesn't run on strength. It runs on obedience. The second someone says no, the system stutters. Then it crumbles. The floor beneath Nexual's feet lit up with a pulse, a direct alert from the Council's planetary shield grid. Unauthorized override attempt detected. Source internal. Impossible, Nexual muttered. That word, Thorn said, keeps meaning less and less today, doesn't it? A faint chime. The cube's glow shifted, blue to white. Then, global message broadcast initiated. Stop it! Nexual roared. This is a private council session. Thorn smiled, just slightly. Not anymore. The cube projected a hologram of Earth's prime voice, a synthetic avatar encoded with the collective directive of every human colony. Its voice was soft, deadly calm. To the peoples of the Galactic Assembly, Earth has received your decision. You chose domination. We choose departure. All prior agreements are null. All alliances conditional. All interference will be interpreted as hostility. The room filled with signal flashes as council sectors scrambled for control. Several delegates tried to sever the transmission, none succeeded. From this moment, the avatar continued, Earth no longer consents to be governed. We are not your anomaly. We are not your project. We are your reckoning. The broadcast ended. The silence it left behind felt permanent. Nexual's voice was low now, shaken. You didn't bring a threat. You brought a revolution. No, Thorn said. We didn't bring anything. You invited it. When you tried to rewrite us. When you looked at a chaotic, defiant species and thought you could tame it with slow starvation and soft lies. The Kathari delegate stood, eyes vacant, as if finally grasping a shape too large to hold. Why no fleets? They whispered. Why not strike us down? Because fleets can be intercepted. Bombs can be countered. But belief? That's viral. Mimetic. Human. He looked to the council, now a hall of fractured confidence. You built this chamber to issue control. Today, it became an echo chamber. Another light blinked, this time not red, but gold. A Varnathi colony had just declared neutrality. With Earth. Nexual slumped slightly, the weight of inevitability settling across his shoulders. What happens now? You adapt, Thorn said. Or you become a memory. He turned, walking back to the center pedestal. The cube deactivated with a soft sigh, folding in on itself like a dying star. He looked over his shoulder one last time. We didn't come here to negotiate. We came to show you the vote already happened. It just wasn't yours. Then he walked out. Nexual sat alone. The council chamber, once a beacon of calculated dominance, now flickered with disconnected protocols and quiet exits. Delegates had left without ceremony, some in silence, others under armed escort. None of them looked back. Thorn Draven was gone. But his presence lingered, like smoke in sealed air. Across the high arch of Nexual's console, data fed through in erratic streams, no longer flowing, now crashing in waves. Entire outer colonies were defecting or falling silent. Earth hadn't deployed a fleet, but it might as well have. They'd turned the galaxy inward. Status report, Nexual commanded, though his voice lacked conviction. A pale, glitching hologram flickered to life. Council Defense Grid AI, voice neutral. 17 member worlds have severed diplomatic links. 14 have issued conditional allegiance to Earth-aligned zones. Sector communication loss at 42%. Economic systems at 72% projected destabilization. Nexual shut his eyes. Military posture? Non-combative. Earth forces remain within their borders. No offensive mobilization detected. That made it worse. They hadn't conquered anything. They just stopped asking permission. Far below the council spire, in a private relay vault beneath planetary shielding, the Varnathi delegate stood before a silent transmission screen. Her mandibles twitched. The message had come through moments ago. No encryption. Just clarity. A human voice. Not Thorn's. A woman's, clear, unwavering. You're free to walk away. But the moment you aim to govern us again, we'll remind you what united rebellion looks like. No signatures. No councils. Just humans doing what they always do, survive harder than you expected. The Varnathi didn't respond. She simply began drafting a formal request for neutrality status. Elsewhere, in orbit over the Kathari stronghold of Kvon, a small Earth science vessel dropped from FTL. It carried no weapons. No shields. Just a signal pulse, broadcasting footage of the Council's classified projects Earth had revealed. Within minutes, thousands of Kahari citizens, engineers, analysts, even junior officials, began resigning from Central Command. When given truth, they didn't debate. They defected. Back in the chamber, Nexual played the cube's recording again. The human broadcast. He didn't know why. Maybe because silence had become unbearable. We are not your anomaly. We are your reckoning. He paused at mid-sentence. Reckoning. That was the word that would haunt him. Not war. Not destruction. Reckoning meant accountability. It meant everything the Council buried under protocol had clawed its way to the surface. Thorn stood on the observation deck of his shuttle, hands in his pockets as Earth's moon came into view. No parade awaited him. No camera feeds. Just quiet stars and the weight of everything they'd set in motion. The AI voice in his ear gave the summary. Council Spire destabilized. Phase 1 complete. Global alignment spreading faster than anticipated. Any resistance? He asked. Minimal. Shock is doing most of the work. He nodded slowly, still watching the horizon. That's the thing about mirrors, he murmured. They don't show you who you were. They show you who you've become. Behind him, the cube rested in a containment field. Deactivated. But not forgotten. On the far edge of the galaxy, in a shadowed corridor of Council Research Archives, a Prelithian sub-clerk accessed a restricted record. Project Trojan Mirror. The entry was simple. Do not engage Terran diplomatic operatives. If they arrive, it is already too late. She read it 3 times. The galaxy didn't fall in a day. But it pivoted. From dominance to uncertainty. From certainty to choice. And Earth, imperfect, loud, unpredictable, was no longer a question mark. It was a fixed point. A gravitational pull none of them could resist. They didn't win by erasing systems. They won by exposing them. On Earth, in a quiet room somewhere under the Atlantic, a group of Terran strategists reviewed the final report. Silent approvals. A few exhausted smiles. Someone leaned back. Do you think they'll retaliate? A pause. Then a voice, calm, dry. Maybe. But now they'll hesitate first. Another nod. That's all we ever needed. In the shadow of the Council's collapse, a new phrase began appearing in unauthorized broadcasts, spray-painted across orbital platforms, embedded in pirate data streams. Remember Praxis 6? They came for control. We answered with Thorn. Earth never needed permission. Nexual sat alone still, the chamber slowly darkening as the planetary grid began automatic shutdown. He whispered into the void, not expecting a reply. Why just one man? No answer came. But in his mind, the words echoed anyway. Because one human was enough.